We love Moriocho.
So in my first video, I was just kind of winging the intro and outro and really didn't know what to say. I'm sure that came across. So I left out a couple of details that I should have added in. Dokgo was released initially in 2012, written by me, and the art was produced by Baek Sung-hoon, if I'm saying that correctly. It's part of what's known as the Memeverse, which consists of Dokgo, Tong, and Blood Rain. And if Dokgo is where you meet your hero, Tong would be where you meet the last boss. That's where you meet Lee Jong-woo. And I'm not gonna give away. And so with that, this is Groovy Tony. Let's move along. Still trying to figure out a name. Leave me alone.
Sung-hwan attempts to attack Hyuk once again. Not taking the notes he should from his bloody nose, he rushes in for another attack. Hyuk parries it and knocks Sung-hwan back into a nearby fence. Sung-hwan is starting to catch on to the situation, but his body already seems to understand. He drops to his knees, realizing that he's shaking, but Hyuk isn't done yet. He grabs Sung-hwan by the back of his hair and proceeds to batter him. Hyuk is expressionless. This is light work for him. It's just a matter of giving someone what they've earned. Sung-hwan thinks to himself that this can't be happening. Hyuk seems to be able to read his thoughts, telling him not to think that this isn't possible, because it's happening. And to reinforce the fact, Hyuk kicks him in the chin. And then, after tossing Sung-hwan's shirt over his head, he leaves, hiding the bloodied and beaten face that the fool now has. After dishing out divine retribution, Hyuk continues to Jung-hoo's funeral, where he lights some incense for him. He tried to help Hoo in whatever way he could, ultimately at his own expense, but that character trait didn't seem to sway anyone else. The funeral is almost completely empty, save for Hoo and Jung-hoo's father. When Jung-hoo's father asks Hoo who he is, he simply answers that he is a friend of his son. He grabs Hoo's hand and thanks him, stating that he was glad to hear that his son had a friend. The resemblance is clear. He asks what kind of student Jung-hoo was, but Hoo has no answer for that question since he only recently transferred in. What he does tell him is that Jung-hoo had a good heart and was always looking out for people. Jung-hoo's father breaks down. As he cries, he thanks Hoo for remembering his son that way. Hoo remains composed as the man breaks into a full cry. First his wife, now his only son. No one should have to live with that kind of pain, but Hyuk can relate. As Sung-hwan finally comes to in the alley, he can't believe the circumstances in which he finds himself, even though Hyuk made it perfectly clear that he should believe it. He remembers what Hyuk said before he left, which we only just now learn about. He instructs Sung-hwan to confess to the police and lets him know that he'll come after him if he tries anything sneaky. But Sung-hwan is a very slow learner, so of course, that's what he'll do right away. He pulls his phone from his pocket and we cut to an older man with a scar on the left side of his face, having a cigarette as he reviews a set of notes. Just then, he's approached by another man, who questions him about what he's doing. He replies that he's reading statements from the school, notes about what was going on with Jung-hoo. He remarks that the students don't seem to know anything, while the other man notes that Jung-hoo was the recipient of a lot of threatening text messages. He asks if he should call the student who sent them. The detective notes that he knows of the student, Hwang Sung-hwan, and says that he took a lot of time to write the messages, remarking that it was almost like Sung Hwan killed Jong-Hoo himself. An astute observation, detective. You're not far off. We then cut to who it was Sung Hwan was calling. The same fellow who was looking for Hyuk earlier. He's in the middle of a street race with money on the line, but he quickly abandons the race to take the call. It must be important. We don't know why he's looking for Hyuk, but we do know why Sung Hwan is calling him. He's looking for someone to do his dirty work. The race has stopped suddenly. Whatever it is that has him looking for Hyuk seems to be important enough to blow off a race for 100,000 won. The opposing racer is left confused. But he just got 100,000 won for a race he was losing. With the information on where to find Hyuk, we see that the guy has arrived in front of his school the next day. Seems like he could have finished the race if he was going to wait until the next day, but alright. Meanwhile, Sung Hwan watches from around a corner, looking like a shy girl with a crush. He's expecting something bad to happen to Hu because of this, obviously, and he wants to witness it for himself. When the two finally meet face to face, the vibe is friendly. The fellow acts as if he and Hu are old friends, but Hyuk, being undercover, has to play it cool. Noticing the tag on his shirt, he asks if Hu is his real name. Hyuk remarks that he'll fill him in on everything later. The guy correctly assumes that Hyuk must be up to something, so he says he'll fall back and let him continue what he's doing. Sung Hwan is confused about why they look so friendly, asking himself if there's something he doesn't know. Well, there's a lot you don't know, Sung Hwan. You're a numbskull. But with that brief exchange, the young man moves on, wishing Hyuk luck with his studying. Before he leaves, Hyuk tells him to act like he doesn't know him for the time being, but that'll hit him up if he needs help. To which he replies, "Got you." Sung Hwan decides to report the scenario to the higher-ups, but before he can leave, he's grabbed by the scar-faced police officer we saw before. He looks nervous, and he should be. He didn't follow any of Taehyun's instructions, after all. Back in class, Hu decides to leave a flower on Jong-Koo's desk, as he thinks about the fact that no one really knows what happened to Hu because of all the confusion surrounding that day, with both Hu and his father dying on the same day. While this is happening, a shoe smacks Hu in the back. It's Ilhan, the second lackey. He tells Hu to pick up the shoe and use it to wipe the flour off the desk. Hu isn't willing to concede. Ilhan continues to press him, and it causes Hyuk to lose his cool, referring to Ilhan as a bitch-ass punk. Ilhan can't believe his ears, but that'll be the least shocking thing he deals with today.
We love Mario Choke.
As I'm editing for the first time, I'm actually noticing that in this shot, Ponytail here looks a lot like Kuno Ryushin from Crows, the fourth head of the front of armament. If you haven't read Crows, you should. I'll probably go over that series as well. That's another old favorite of mine from years ago. I know the author of this is also a big fan of that comic, as it'll come up in some of the other comics as well, but I don't think there's any particular reference to it in this one. But this shot could be one. Who knows? He's, again, like I said, he's also a fan, so you tend to pay respects to your inspirations and whatnot. This could be a case of that. Anyways, I just thought that was something worth note, and also something to look forward to. Ilhan asks if Kang Hu has lost his mind.
Tae-hoon reminds him of the 3-week probation in an attempt to stop him, but Il-han argues with him about it. Just then, Kang-hyuk sees an opportunity and signals to Tae-hoon to let it be. Tae-hoon then tells Kang-hoo that they're both going to take him to the plant. Il-han taunts him, oblivious to the fact that nothing is actually going to go his way. As their classmates look on nervously, Kang-hoo walks out of the room first, telling them, "Let's go," without any hesitation. Just then, we see our sequel, pulling up to a local restaurant. Masita Chicken, a location that will be often seen throughout the series. A friend of his emerges from the restaurant. After greeting him, he asks if the familiar face found Dokgo. He answers that he has, but that he's not going to be joining them. Apparently, they wanted him to come along for a retirement fight. The new guy remarks about regrets he has about doing nothing but fighting all the time, and says that he plans to get his GED. It seems like Hyuk, they also did not finish school. Back at Taesan High, Il-han is attempting to bully Hoo. However, as he charges in, he gets a good hard slap for his efforts, leaving him more confused than anything. It happens so fast that he needs a moment to register. The process then repeats itself, as Il-han ends up on the palm end of a face slap once again. This actually goes on for a bit. Il-han is not a tactician. In between slapping Il-han, Hyuk ties his hair into his top-knot style once again. From this point on, think of that as his Batman costume. Once it's on, the Bruce Wayne act is over. As he slaps him once more, he tells Il-han to get down. When he doesn't, he slaps him again so hard that his knees buckle. This is actually worse than what Tae-hoon got. But considering the disrespect he showed Jong-koo mere moments ago, it's well earned. Il-han looks at Tae-hoon with a baffled expression, once again questioning Hoo's sanity, and receiving a solid kick to the shin for his trouble, which is followed up by a sweeping kick to the same leg. Il-han is brought to his knees. As he looks up at Kang-hoo, Il-han has the same experience Sung-hwan had, trembling in fear. Maybe Tae-hoon is lucky Hyuk got to him before Jong-koo died. As Il-han attempts to get Tae-hoon to join the fight, he finds himself getting slapped again. Worse yet, Tae-hoon has talked his way out of joining in. We see once again that Il-han is really stupid. He thinks that Hyuk is only good at slapping and that he can beat him in a fistfight. That doesn't make any sense. Hyuk can already see what he's thinking, and also remarks how stupid Il-han must be. Since he can't understand that if someone slaps hard, they more than likely punch quite hard. Hyuk leaves an opening to bait Il-han, and as Il-han takes the bait, Hyuk catches his strike and provides him with another slap. This time, Il-han hits the ground, hard, and before he can get up, Hyuk steps on his face, driving his heel into his cheek, giving him a sense of what Jong-koo felt, day in and day out. He and a number of others. He forces him to apologize to Jong-koo while Tae-hoon looks on uncomfortably, probably thinking to himself how fortunate he was to have just been knocked out. Hyuk gives Il-han time to recover as Tae-hoon helps him up. He doesn't hit him again, but instead breaks down his plan to Il-han, who has just been drafted into Hyuk's service. At this point, Il-han realizes that Hoo has been given information by Tae-hoon. Tae-hoon doesn't hesitate to confess. It's not like Il-han can't understand, even his current situation. His plan is to take out the 20 royal bodyguards first, with the intention of checking the skill level of the organization's so-called strongest fighters, while wearing down their numbers and learning how to see how to get to Lee Tae-hyun. The total number of enemies is 130. Hyuk knows he can't fight 130 people all at once, showing that he's well aware of his limits, and also not invincible. But still, Il-han attempts to buck, and Kang-hyuk quickly puts him back in his place. Since he can't beat him, Il-han can only do as he's told at the moment. Il-han, still a simpleton, says that Hyuk wouldn't be able to beat a royal bodyguard. Il-han sees an opportunity to get out of this as Hyuk tells him to set up a fight with one of the royal bodyguards. He names Park Han, who we saw in the lunchroom when Jong-koo bumped into him. Tae-hoon doesn't seem on board, afraid of disobeying the chairman's orders. As we saw on the rooftops, an order given by Lee Tae-hyun is an order you take seriously. But Il-han insists on going through with it, thinking they can keep it quiet from the chairman. Hyuk realizes that these two are easy to manipulate because they aren't very bright, lacking any imagination or common sense. Switching over to the detective's office, we see him laying down a stack of papers in front of Sung-hwan.
printout of all the threats he sent to Jong-hoo, and another stack that contains the statements of his classmates. Sung-hwan attempts to pass the messages off as a joke, but the statements say otherwise. Sung-hwan attempts to talk his way out of the situation, but the detective isn't having any of it. He slams his fist on the table and tells Sung-hwan to read the damn statements. As it turns out, it was who gave the statements. The detective tells his partner to go to Jong-hoo's family to request an autopsy. They're going to cross-reference Jong-hoo's injuries with what was written. The detective tells Sung-hwan that he's going to take full responsibility for this, and that he's going to lose every chance he has in life because of it. It seems like this might be somewhat personal for him. The school has erected a banner, School Violence Special Crackdown Period, as if that helps. Il-han and Tae-hoon have approached Park-han about fighting Kang-hoo, telling him that Hoo seems to have trained for the past year and that they were both beaten by him. Park-han reminds them of the probation period and also says that as part of the royal bodyguards, he can't move without the president, Lee Tae-hyun's approval. He tells them to keep in line until the period is over, but before he leaves, he says he'll ask Ko Sung-chol to fight in his place, who he says is good enough to be a royal bodyguard, but he can act since he isn't one officially. The two of them approach Sung-chol, who has already heard everything from Park-han. He's laughing at the low-level duo and chastising them for asking other people to fight for them, as well as being beaten up by who he sees as a loser. Sung-chol's attitude is arrogant. Il-han is under the impression that Sung-chol will teach Hoo a lesson, but Tae-hoon seems uncertain of the situation. We see Lee Tae-hyun is having a talk with Park Pal-young. Tae-hyun tells Pal-young that a meeting has been set for Sunday. They're apparently seeking a person called Dokgo, who Pal-young refers to as a guy who took down 30 high school thugs and was expelled during his 3rd year in middle school. We now know for certain why Hyuk was expelled from middle school in the first place. Tae-hyun says that Dokgo was originally from the same area they're in now, but that he was wandering around somewhere else for 3 years. When Pal-young asks his name, Tae-hyun says that he doesn't know, just that he's called Dokgo, similar to how they refer to them as the 3-man group. It's been mentioned before that Tae-hyun runs with Pal-young and one other person more than anyone else. They've been friends since middle school. On the other end of that meeting is the same guy who had been talking with Hyuk. It seems that this is the meeting he mentioned last time we saw these two chatting. He and the smaller frame fellow with the scar under his eye. He talks about the future, what they'll do once this is over. Scarface tells Ponytail that he should work in the shop they're in once they're done. This is where we learn that Scarface delivers chicken for a living. Out of the shop, we see the chicken that we saw them in previously. Ponytail, despite not having any real job prospects, doesn't seem too elated about the idea of being a chicken delivery boy. After a brief chat, Ponytail picks up his phone to call the organizer. He now has to inform him that the agreed upon 3-on-3 will no longer be happening. Now it'll be 2-on-3. In a bit of irony, the same Dokgo that Tae-hyun is seeking for this very fight is right under his nose. But at the same time, he won't get to see him, because that same Dokgo is now looking for him. Speaking of Dokgo, Sung-chol tells Park-han and Tae-hoon to bring Hoo to the park after school. The same park where Hoo was nearly beaten to death a year earlier. They still don't know that he actually died, and so Sung-chol believes that this will cause Hoo to react to the trauma of being where he was a year ago. In this same situation, Sung-chol, in his arrogance, chastises the two lackeys once again for not being able to figure this out on their own, even smacking Il-han and poking his head with the tip of his finger. They can't really do anything about it after all. They're beneath him in both rank and fighting skill. Sung-chol also seems to like to do things with a dramatic flair. The combination of overconfidence and showmanship may just be his undoing. The lackey duo informs Kang-hoo that they have somewhere to be. Hoo questions if it's Park-han, but Il-han tells him that it's Ko Sung-chol instead. Hoo asks if Sung-chol is one of the royal bodyguards. Il-han says he isn't, but that he is on par with them when it comes to skill. This is when we get a look into how these royal bodyguards are chosen. It's also the first time we see all 3 members of the 3-man group, consisting of Lee Tae-hyun, Park Pal-young, and Do Jung-hoon. They're watching Park Han fight with Sung Chul for a place in the top ranks. Park Han already has scuff marks and a few cuts on his face. Sung Chul looks a bit winded, but otherwise fine. Sung Chul charges Park Han. As he does, Sung Chul attacks with a series of kicks and a flurry of punches. Park Han gives up, conceding victory to Sung Chul. Sung Chul tells Park Han to get up, and says it was a good fight. Just as Jung Hoon is about to announce the last member of the 20 royal bodyguards, Tae Hyun stops him, and announces that Park Han is the last member. Everyone is shocked, since Sung Chul clearly won the fight. Tae Hyun and the others leave, without giving any explanation to the onlooking crowd. However, as they enter the stairwell, Do Jung inquires as well. Tae Hyun tells him why he picked Park Han. He remarks that Sung Chul is too fancy. A simple explanation, but that brings us back to the present, inside the park where Sung Chul is waiting for Hu to arrive. Another member of the circle sits with him. It begins to rain, and Sung Chul remarks that it's just like last year. The other person questions why Sung Chul is doing this during the 3-week period, stating that the president will kill him if he finds out about it. Sung Chul taunts him, saying he can leave if he's scared. But his inner dialogue reveals that he'll take on any task that will allow him to prove he's better than Park Han, since he feels Park Han has what should be his. As class ends, Hu is approached by Il-han and Tae-hoon. He tells Il-han that he better not go back on his word just because Sung Chul isn't part of the royal bodyguards. Il-han agrees, flippantly. As they open the classroom door to exit, So Yoi-ran stands in front of Hu, smiling. What could she want at a time like this? Hu is completely caught off guard by Ye-ran. She chastises Hu for not coming to the club like she told him to. He tells her he's been busy, which isn't a lie. She tries to get him to walk home with her, but he tells her that he's busy now. Noticing Il-han and Tae-hoon, she warns him not to do anything to him. They play along, saying they won't, as if there was something they could do to him. Ye-ran tells Hu to come to the clubroom tomorrow because there's something she has to show him. With that, the three exit as she watches on curiously. Ye-ran is something of a meddler, but with good intentions. As they move along, Hu asks the lackey duo if he was in some sort of club. They tell him that he was in the literature club and that it's located on the 3rd floor. Hu arrives at the battlefield with Il-han and Tae-hoon, not wearing his glasses and with his hair slicked back. He and Sung Chul have the same hairstyle and outfit. It's almost a little hard to tell them apart. As he arrives, Hyuk says, "You're him? It's raining, so let's get this over with." Sung Chul laughs out loud, mockingly. He tells Hu that he can take the first hit, approaching him and boasting about how he could take on 10 people like Tae-hoon and Il-han at once. They shrug, as if they don't really believe him either. As Sung Chul continues to run his mouth, Hyuk asks him as he fights with words. Sung Chul really does talk a lot, but he's also skilled, which we see as he throws a fake kick at Hyuk, stopping right before his face. Hyuk notes that he's a bit different, but doesn't seem fazed in the least. Sung Chul talks some more, but Hyuk only responds by saying, "I'll take you on seriously." After more of his yammer, he performs a few tricky moves and manages to land a hit on Hyuk. Tae-hoon and Il-han look on with different expressions. It's time to see Hyuk fighting for real. Hyuk notes that Sung Chul is an unconventional fighter, comparing him to Tae-hoon and Il-han. Sung Chul is impressed that Hyuk dodged his strike, as we find out from the onlookers that he stepped back at the moment of getting hit to reduce the impact. They still think Sung Chul has the upper hand, however. As Sung Chul attacks, Hyuk dodges effortlessly, while at the same time he analyzes his movements, saying that they look fancy but would be easy for a strong opponent to handle. From there, he deduces that if Lee Tae-hyun picked Park Han to join the royal bodyguards instead of Sung Chul, then he most likely noticed the same thing. And if that's the case, then Lee Tae-hyun is well experienced with the smarts to back it up. As Hyuk continues to dodge, Sung Chul grows frustrated. Hyuk is still lost in his thoughts, thinking that Lee Tae-hyun was right to pick Park Han over Sung Chul. He notices that Sung Chul's movements are too wide and that in the real fight he would get seriously hurt. This also tells him that Park Han probably wouldn't be able to beat Sung Chul unless he tries to seriously injure him. From that, he figures that Park Han and Sung Chul are either friends, or Park Han is a soft-hearted person. He knows now that beating Park Han will be easy once he takes down Sung Chul. In a few minutes, he has assessed the situation and the skills of two people, and once he's done analyzing, he catches Sung Chul's leg and tosses him into a spin. Sung Chul hits the ground in a raging shock. Hyuk looks down at him, telling him that he can see through all his big moves, and that he would show him what the difference is starting now. He gets that look in his eyes again, as he gives Sung Chul a stare. Sung Chul charges him again, and attempts another jump kick. Another big, flashy move, akin to a little kid who likes to just see the special moves in Street Fighter, but never actually learns to play the game. You know, me. This is when Hyuk pulls out his inner Kakashi. Hyuk counters him with the same move Sung Chul first used at the start of the fight. It connects cleanly, knocking Sung Chul to the ground. Sung Chul scrambles to his knees, as his attendant rushes to his aid. As he rests upon the ground, Sung Chul recalls asking Lee Tae-hyun why he wasn't chosen. Tae-hyun gives it to him straight, telling him that he won't do any good in a real fight. To kids, it'll look good, but he has too many useless movements. Sung Chul then comes back to reality. Sung Chul loses his temper and pulls a knife. Hyuk isn't scared. He's annoyed. He takes a step towards Sung Chul, showing no fear.
너 진짜 개년이야.
You really are a bitch. Hyuk decides that in order to get Park Han, he'll need to hurt Sung Chul seriously, which Sung Chul has given him justification for by drawing that knife. He takes a swing, but Hyuk catches his hand. Sung Chul attempts to kick his way free, but Hyuk disarms him with a flip of his wrist and tosses Sung Chul to the ground. And while he has him on the ground, he breaks his wrist without hesitation. Sung Chul screams out in pain. His onlooker can't believe what he's seeing. Hyuk is cold. The onlooker he arrived with rushes to his side. Il-han can't believe his eyes. Hyuk gives Sung Chul a solid kick while he's on the ground. He isn't here to be a hero. He's here to avenge his brother's death. And kicking a man while he's down, well, that's just part of it. The tag-along screams for Hyuk to stop and tells him he's already won. But it seems Sung Chul hasn't given up yet. Tae-hoon and Il-han look on with faces that say they're pretty sure it's over. But still, Sung Chul refuses to concede. He won't admit defeat. But he doesn't have to, because he's lost regardless. And the next thing we see is Kang Hyuk entering his home. He begins writing on his info wall once again. He writes down his analysis of Ko Sung Chul and what his insight into Park Han and Lee Tae-hyun are as a result. The end result is that Lee Tae-hyun is dangerous, and Ko Sung Chul is done for. He's expecting Park Han to make a move, stating that he'll put Tae-hoon and Il-han on standby for the time being. With the royal bodyguards unable to act during the 3-week probation period, Hyuk will have time to pick apart their power structure before Tae-hyun notices. And when he does notice, Hyuk will already be in position to destroy him. The next day at school, we see the police are still patrolling the school campus, just to make their presence known. Tae-hyun tells Pao Young to keep the delinquents in line. He also asks why Hwang Sung-hwan hasn't come to him with a report on how the funeral plan went. Park Pao Young mentions that Sung-hwan didn't go to Jung-hoo's funeral, and that he hasn't been to school in a while either. Tae-hyun says they need to look into it, sensing that something must be amiss, because there's no way a lackey like Hwang Sung-hwan would ever disobey an order. Not from Lee Tae-hyun. Not from the man himself. He ain't got the balls. We see the scar-faced cop from earlier talking to the school principal. The principal refers to him as detective, but he corrects him, stating that he's an inspector, and we hear his name for the first time, Park Kwang-min. The principal gives him a bad attitude, and tells him that they don't appreciate him showing up constantly and asking questions. Inspector Park says that they plan on looking into the school's violence, and that they plan on questioning other students to get to the root of the problem. The principal says that either way, they plan on expelling Huang Sung-hwan, and tells him to stop coming by the school, since Sung-hwan won't be a student there anymore. The detective is taken by surprise. While riding in the car with his partner, he says that he's surprised by the fact that a teacher gave up on his student so easily. He also says that there's a test coming up soon, and that he agreed to wait until after to question the students. In the meantime, the inspector agreed not to come by the school. When questioned by his partner if he really plans on doing that, he responds with a flat no. His partner grins, responding, "I knew you would." It seems they take their job seriously. Back at school, we see that Park Han has learned that Sung Chul was beaten. The guy who was with him during the fight is giving him the news. He says that Sung Chul is in the hospital with a broken wrist. Park Han is angry enough to storm into Kang Hoo's class and call him out. Hoo looks uncomfortable and scared, but Park Han calls him out and demands that he follow him before he gets beat up on the spot. Tae-hoon and Il-han look noticeably nervous as Kang Hoo stands up and asks where to go. Park Han exits the class and Kang Hoo follows him. As they walk down the hall, someone addresses Park Han, asking if he's going to do something to Kang Hoo, reminding him of the probation period. Park Han says that he's not going to do anything serious. The new fellow seems annoyed. We see that he has a part in his hair and a mole on his face, but no name is given yet. Kang Hoo is surprised that they aren't fighting, but Park Han just wants to ask him what he's trying to do, telling him that he should just quietly attend school, and asking if he's trying to avenge what happened to him last year. Hoo doesn't respond. Park Han tells him to stop or he'll end up dying if he keeps doing what he's doing. Kang Hoo questions him about a fight. Park Han says he won't fight without a good reason or an order from the chairman. Kang Hoo is surprised by this turn of events. He can't understand Park Han's actions. Park Han is clearly not the brutish thug type like the people he's encountered so far. Maybe that's just part of the difference between the royal bodyguards. Park Han warns Kang Hoo to stop before it's too late. He doesn't react when Kang Hoo attempts to provoke him. Park Han knows he can beat Ko Sung Chul, so he isn't shaken by that loss. He tells Kang Hoo confidently that he would never lose to him in a fight, and that he would beat him in one hit. Sure, brother. As Park Han begins to leave, Hoo tells him that he's acting cool, but he's really just another piece of shit bothering his classmates. He then tells him that he's going to get rid of their entire group, and that includes Park Han as well. Park Han calls him an arrogant fuck, as the tension builds between the two of them.
We love Moriocho.
So you can see at this point, things are beginning to pick up. There's more fighting, more action, and you can see that this isn't the goody two-shoes type of manga or manhwa that you're gonna find. This is more along the lines of like not Superman but Batman, as making the comparison. Hyuk tends to break bones, kick people while they're down, general thuggishness, but for his own sense of morality, which I don't know if you could call it good or bad. That's really up to you, but I feel like avenging your brother's death is a pretty good thing. Generally, he tends to err on the side of justice, or what he, perceives to be justice, and just tries to do what's right. But, without that whole non-violent bullshit, because frankly, you can't get it done otherwise. So, Hyuk's a favorite character of mine. This is one of my favorite series, as I've said. And I hope you're enjoying it so far. And if you can't wait for me, then by all means, check it out yourself. This is a great comic. I'm just breaking it down as I go so that people can sort of see it the way I saw it when I first read it, because it was just such an amazing series to me that even though I know most of the characters' names, like I'm calling him Ponytail, but of course I know his name, I just don't want to give it to you yet, because I want that reveal to, kind of mean something. If you're following along, then you get the sense of like, oh, so that's his name that I get, and then you find out later that that name is going to mean something. It's going to be a pretty big name, but again, no spoilers here. Well, except for the ones that I'm giving out as I do this. So it's I don't want to call it a slow-moving comic, but it takes its time, and so there's more to see as you go. So enjoy.